Is the 16-year-old who saw Gremlins at the Arcadian Theater in Ossining, New York, who is thrilled to introduce Zach Galligan, Dick Miller, Phoebe. So I'll start by, in honor of the man of the hour, could you each talk about your experiences of working with Mr. Miller on Gremlins?
Do you want to go first, Phoebes?
You go first.
Okay. You want me to go first? I had an amazing time with Dick, both on Gremlins 1 and Gremlins 2. On Gremlins 2, I just was thinking about this on the bus on the way down. There's a moment where Dick comes in and he surprises Phoebe and I at our apartment, and he has to pretend that he's completely better from the trauma that happened to him, and then he keeps hearing things around him that aren't there. And Dick, you know, I always thought of Dick as kind of a tough guy and a serious actor. I didn't know how funny he was. And he was so unbelievably funny in that scene that Phoebe and I got the tremendous giggles and couldn't really, it took us about 10, 11 takes to get it done because Dick was so funny every time he came in the door with Jackie Joseph getting startled by the Gremlins. So he's not only a fine dramatic actor, but he's also a really solid comic actor too.
That was the story that I was going to tell. I was going to say you can actually see in the scene, if you look for it, you can see us laughing.
Yeah.
Because it was hard, but we just had a great time, and we always look forward to our scenes with Dick. It's just fun, just really fun.
And actually, when we did the first Gremlins, the very first night of shooting was at Universal Studios, and it was the scene where Dick is drunk and has to be helped out to his Kentucky Harvester, and talks about WWII and all of those great little moments that you'll see in a few minutes. And so that was the first scene we shot in the movie. And if you look at it, it's really Dick's scene. Phoebe and I are basically just listening. And so this was my first scene in what I thought would be a reasonably big movie, and I was watching Dick, and Dick was just tearing it up. And I'm smiling in the scene, but you can see me kind of thinking, tomorrow I have to have my scene with Dick, and I'm not nearly as good an actor as he is. I hope I don't mess it up. And actually, the next scene was shot the next morning, was the one with me fixing my car. And he starts telling me about Little Abner and Smiling Jack and everything like that. And I was so nervous working with Dick the first time. If you watch the movie, you can see my first couple of lines, I stutter nervously because I can't get them out fluidly. And I remember my mom turning to me at the screening and saying, "What's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? You don't seem like you." I'm like, "I'm working with Dick Miller, Mom." True story.
I can't tell about myself because I was there with me.
So could you each talk about working with the Gremlins themselves and working with creatures with wires and things coming out of them who are not actually speaking, etc. at the time?
When I was in the scenes where I'm with them, I felt that they were real. That it was a real. I didn't see any of the wires or the hands or anything. I really felt that they were real. Yes.
Your turn.
Well, not so much with me, but I did love the experience of being able to sort of, I mean, movies aren't really made that way anymore with that kind of animatronic, hand-worked. It took a real village, and you know, you'd have like one guy at your feet here blowing a straw that just was meant to sort of have one effect, and two guys here and one person sort of helped. It just kind of was incredible.
I found out, I attended a 30th anniversary Gremlins article for Empire magazine just about a year ago. And, you know, Phoebe and I experienced Chris Walas, the guy who did the animatronics. I experienced him, at least, I can only speak for myself, this way. He was kind of a nice guy who seemed kind of stressed out a little bit and, you know, seemed like he had his hands full. So we did this roundtable discussion, and Chris finally got to tell what his experience was like doing Gremlins. When Joe Dante offered him the job and hired him, he had no one working for him. no shop, no nothing. So he shook hands and said, "Oh, sure, I'll do this Spielberg movie, no problem." It ran away from Joe, went home, and like hired 50 personnel right on the spot, hired a shop, invested all of his money. He had no idea what he was doing, and he was not no idea, but he had an idea what he was doing, but he had no actual plan. So he had to make it all up as he went along, and he said he was about 2 or 3 days ahead of what everyone was asking him to do. But basically that was his window, it was about 48 hours. So he said he came close to having a nervous breakdown on Gremlins, and whenever he thinks about it, it's the single worst experience of his life. And also the best experience of his life because it made him, and it was huge, and he also got a percentage of the merchandise. So there you go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's sitting pretty up in Oregon right now as we speak.
Before we turn this over to the audience, Phoebe, I have to ask about your infamous Christmas monologue. How you felt when you first read that and realized you had to deliver that great speech.
That's what made me really want to do the movie. Just because, you know, it's so... Joe's really great with tone and really smart about how he directs and casts. And, you know, I loved it. There was never any question sort of how to do it. We sort of were just on the same page from the beginning.
Questions from the audience? Yes?
Let's see if you can hear me, because the last night you couldn't hear me. This is from Phoebe Cates. You were talking about all this thing about working with the Gremlins and working with the actors and the puppeteers. The toughest scene must have been for you, the bar scene, in which you're serving all these Gremlins all at the same time. Was that the toughest scene for you?
Yes, because I think there are a few real screams in it. It was mainly because there were some cockroaches. Because it was like one of those hot sets with food and soda and everything spilled everywhere. So it was what it is,
Any others? Yes?
Has anybody approached you or asked about Gremlins 3? Maybe doing Gremlins 3, or would you be open to something like that? Or is that something that just...
Well, I mean, people have bandied about reboots and Gremlins 3 and ideas and this and that, and Joe has discussed it, and people have discussed it, and what it really comes down to, I think, is two major things. One, it's been 26 years since we shot Gremlins 2. It's an incredibly long time to come up with a part 3, at least from a business standpoint. But the other situation really is the advent of CGI, and now it's completely eclipsed practical effects and animatronics. So if the studio wants to do it, they're not going to pay for the practical effects. It's just going to be a CGI thing. And if it's going to be a CGI thing, Joe doesn't really have any interest in doing it. So there you go. I think they should just do Gizmo with practical effects, and then the Gremlins with CGI, and have a little compromise there. What do you think, Dick?
That's a good idea. 25 years is nothing. We could all be doing the same parts. Just, grandparents, grandchildren get in trouble with the Gremlins.
I always wanted to see a sitcom about the Futtermans, but I don't know if anyone can bring that up.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
Other questions? Yes, over there.
So we know you're not supposed to feed the Gremlins after midnight, but when can you start feeding them again? It's never a trust. It's a problem. Like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., what's their breakfast time?
Well, if you remember in Gremlins 2, we kind of addressed that a little bit, the absurdity of the rules. What if a caraway seed gets stuck in your teeth, and then you cross the international date line, and all of those things. So if you haven't seen that movie, you should check that scene out.
Next question. Over here.
Hi, it's just for Dick. So Chopping Mall, Bucket of Blood, Twilight Zone movie, who's Walter Paisley?
What was the question?
It's your character
Who is
in 3 different movies.
Which one is Walter Paisley?
Walter Paisley,
Oh,
who played?
Walter Paisley. Walter Paisley is I guess it's Joe Dante's trouble. I played the part We did another picture, and he said, I said, what's the character's name? He said, Walter Paisley. I said, well, you just did that. He said, no, it's just a name. I said, all right. Third picture came up. He said, you're Walter Paisley. I said, St. Paul. He said, no, just a name. He went on for, I believe it's a record, for 7 pictures, or 8 pictures even. And I don't know, Walter Paisley is Dick Miller.
More questions? Over here.
Other than Gizmo, do you have any other personal favorite of the Gremlin characters?
Who's this to?
Many of you.
Do you have any other favorite Mogwai, Dick, other than Gizmo?
No, they were all about the same. Furry little, you know what. And we took them as they came.
Come on, I'm kind of partial to Giz, you know what I mean? I mean, he was my buddy. We spent a lot of time together, but I thought some of the ones in Gremlins 2 were pretty cute, you know, kind of like Daffy too. But I thought all the animatronics and everything that Chris Wallace did in the first one and Rick Baker did an amazing job in the second one. I thought that they were all really interesting, you know, creative designs.
Right in front.
I was just wondering if each of you could sort of share a particular moment that when you remember this shoot is sort of the moment from the production that you sort of flash on as being sort of encapsulating the film.
I remember when the paychecks came in. It stays on my mind. The rest of it's a blank.
Seminal moment for you, Phoebes? Do you have one? Don't have one? No? It's a tough question. I mean, it was you know, the whole thing was a pretty mind-blowing experience for me. I mean, by that time, Phoebe had already done Fast Times, she'd done other movies, and so this was really kind of like my first or second real thing. So everything about it, you know, it was the first time I'd ever been to California. I couldn't even drive. I didn't have a drive as a New Yorker. You know, I didn't get my license till I was 22, or when I was 24. And the only way I got around was Phoebe would pick me up in the morning in her white Toyota Cressida and give me lifts places. She was great. She was a trooper. She did go down a one-way street one time. Do you remember that? You went down the wrong way street. And I was like, what the hell? No, she was great. And yeah, so I mean, I just, it was all so new and I was so young. I guess maybe the last shot, when I realized it was the last shot on, I think it was like August, first week of August. And they were like, Joe was like, yep, this is the last shot and you're done. I think that was kind of like, wow. That was kind of trippy.
What shot was that?
Thanks, Dick. Thanks. That was the shot where the gremlin pops out of the infirmary, and then the camera pans down and you see the bit of elastic go out through the thing, and then it's just a shot of me watching him go and my head kind of bangs against the wall, like it relieved. It's just this very, very simple shot. It was the last one, and then I was back on a plane, back to New York. Pretty trippy.
I have to say, that shot got the biggest scream when I saw it in the theater when the gremlin pops out of that door. Everyone in the theater was out of their chairs. Got time for a couple more questions back there?
So where is Gizmo now? Like, why isn't he here tonight?
Anyone know?
I asked him to show up, and he just couldn't make it.
One last question. Over here.
This is for Phoebe. I was just wondering what it was like to have Judge Reinhold lusting after you again after Fast Times.
Wanted to know what it was like to have Judge Reinhold.
lusting after her for a second time. Fast times.
It was all right.
Okay, well, we have to wrap this up and get the movie rolling, but I'd like to thank our guests for coming and talking. Please come back the entire following week. That guy, Dick Miller, will be playing every night, plus lots of Dick Miller's other films, Gremlins 2, a lot of great Roger